Ryan smirked, leaning back in his chair, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "Grandma," he said, dragging the words like they were a joke, "old people should just stay quiet." The words landed like a hammer. I froze, mid-knitting, my fingers tightening on the yarn. Silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that makes you hold your breath and wait for impact. I could see him grinning, thinking he'd gotten away with something clever. "Ryan," I said, slow and steady, my voice cutting through the afternoon hum of the house. "Do you even know what you just said?" His grin faltered. I was joking," he mumbled. "It's just, old people." I didn't interrupt. I simply leaned back in my chair, letting him feel the weight of my gaze. The room seemed smaller, the afternoon light sharper, shadows stretching across the walls like silent witnesses. "Staying quiet doesn't just keep the peace," I said. "It costs pieces of yourself. Little pieces you might not even realize are gone." He blinked, confusion and curiosity mixing on his face. "Pieces of myself?" "Yes," I said, placing the knitting aside. "Every time someone like you dismisses someone because they're older, quieter, or slower, you miss lessons you'll never learn anywhere else. Stories, experiences, wisdom that can change the way you see the world." "You think you're teasing me, but really," I paused, letting the words sink, "you're blind to what really matters." Ryan swallowed hard, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. I saw the spark of doubt, tiny but persistent, flicker in his eyes. He was used to joking, to brushing things off, but this moment wasn't a joke. Not for him, and certainly not for me. "I don't get it, Grandma," he said softly, almost like he was admitting defeat. "How does being quiet cost?" "Pieces of me?" I leaned forward, my hands wrapped around my tea mug, feeling its warmth seep into my palms. "Let me tell you a story," I said. "A story from a long time ago, before you were even born, that might help you understand. It's about courage, about silence, and about what happens when the quietest voice in the room suddenly matters more than anyone imagined." His eyes widened. "A story?" "Yes," I said, smiling faintly. "And it's not just any story. It's one that will make you think about what you just said, and why it matters who speaks and who doesn't." I could see him leaning in, curiosity overcoming his mischievous smirk. The boy who thought he was teasing me was now on the edge of learning something far bigger than any game or schoolyard joke. "And trust me," I added, my voice soft but serious, "the look on your face when you understand this story will be priceless. Because it's the moment you realize being quiet doesn't mean being weak, and that sometimes the quietest people carry the most power." Ryan swallowed. The cookie he had been nibbling sat forgotten on the table. The afternoon sun stretched across his freckled face, highlighting the seriousness that had replaced his playful grin. I could see the gears turning in his mind. He was thinking, processing. For the first time, he realized there was a world beyond jokes and teasing, a world where words, silence, and action had real weight. I leaned back, letting the moment linger, the hum of the house pressing in around us. "So," I said finally, "are you ready to listen?" Ryan nodded, a little stiffly, but with intent. "Yeah," he said quietly, I think I am." And with that, the story began, one that would stretch across decades, across courage, across lessons he would never forget. "You think I'm old and quiet because I'm weak?" I asked, letting the words hang in the air like a challenge. Ryan froze, cookie halfway to his mouth, his eyes wide. The playful spark in his gaze had vanished, replaced by curiosity. And something else. A flicker of respect, perhaps, or maybe fear, he wasn't sure yet. I don't know," he admitted, voice small. I leaned forward, the wooden chair creaking under me, my hands wrapped around my warm tea mug. The smell of chamomile and old books filled the tiny room. "When I was your age," I said softly, "I faced something that taught me the cost of staying silent, and the power of speaking or acting when it really matters." Ryan tilted his head, frowning. What happened?" I smiled faintly, memories flooding back. It was the summer of 1978. I was 16, living in a small town where everyone knew everyone's business. I thought I understood life back then, but I didn't. Not really. He leaned closer, fascinated despite himself. "Go on," he whispered. There was a neighbor, Mrs. Callahan. I continued, my voice steady, painting the picture for him. Everyone in town thought she was old-fashioned, nosy, insignificant, but she carried wisdom that none of us recognized at the time. One day, her house caught fire. Ryan gasped, almost dropping the cookie. Was she okay? Yes, I nodded slowly, taking a sip of tea. But here's the part most people didn't see. While everyone else panicked and screamed outside, she ran in, through the flames, calling for the family trapped inside. His jaw dropped. She ran into the fire? I nodded. Every single person would have stayed frozen. Every single neighbor. Everyone except her. She didn't hesitate. She saved them. Ryan's eyes were wide as saucers. Wow. She saved them? Yes, I said, feeling the memory weigh on me like a living thing. And before that day, most of us dismissed her. We thought she was too old, too quiet, too irrelevant. But when it mattered, she was the bravest person in town. The quietest, the most overlooked, and the most powerful. I paused, letting him absorb it. The sunlight slanting through the window cast long shadows across the floor. The hum of the old house seemed to fade, leaving just us and the story. So, you're saying, Ryan whispered, almost reverently, just because someone's quiet doesn't mean they're weak? Yes, I said firmly. Exactly. And that's why I flinched when you said old people should stay quiet. You see, silence can be strength, and it's often in quiet moments or quiet people that the most important lessons live. He swallowed hard, trying to process it. I never thought about it like that, he admitted. That's okay, I said softly. Most people don't. They see wrinkles, gray hair, or quiet voices and think it's nothing. But every line on my face, every quiet hour I've spent thinking, observing, learning, that's my strength. That's my story. And that's why speaking up, or acting when it counts, matters more than anything. Ryan was silent for a moment, eyes glued to me. I could see the wheels turning in his head, trying to stretch around ideas much bigger than school, video games, or playground rules. I guess I've been wrong, he murmured, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. I didn't realize quiet people could do so much. I reached over and touched his shoulder gently. Most people don't realize. That's why stories matter, because a story can open your eyes in ways nothing else can. And today, I'm telling you one of the stories that changed me and can change you too, if you really listen. His gaze lifted, curiosity battling with a faint trace of guilt. He had thought this was a harmless joke. Now, he was beginning to understand the weight of words, the value of experience, and the hidden strength in those often overlooked. Ryan, I continued, my voice calm but compelling. What you said wasn't just a careless joke. It was a moment. And moments like these, they teach us something. They show us the cost of underestimating people and the reward of paying attention to those who speak softly, or not at all. He blinked, nodding slowly. I want to understand. I really do. I smiled, a mixture of pride and quiet satisfaction. Good, because what I'm about to tell you next will show you why courage and wisdom matter more than noise and arrogance. Why staying quiet sometimes costs far more than you think. And why speaking up at the right moment can save lives, or at least change them forever. His cookie sat untouched on the table, forgotten. The flicker in his eyes told me the spark had been lit. He didn't yet know the full story, but the seed of understanding was planted. By the end, he wouldn't just respect quiet people, he'd see why every quiet voice deserves to be heard. And I could see it already, the first crack in his armor. The boy who thought he was teasing me was now leaning into the story, desperate to learn. The afternoon light shifted again, brushing across his freckled face. Shadows lengthened across the room, and in that moment, the past and present seemed to merge. My story was no longer mine alone, it had become a lesson. A bridge between generations. Ryan inhaled, a little breath catching in his throat. Grandma, I get it. I think I do. I nodded, letting him feel the weight of the moment. Good, but this story isn't finished yet. What I'm about to tell you next, it's the part that really matters. The part that will change the way you think about silence, courage, and respect forever. And in that quiet room, with the sun dipping low in the sky, I knew he was ready. Ready to see, to feel, to learn and to carry this lesson with him, long after the story ended. Ryan leaned back in his chair, eyes wide, his cookie forgotten on the table. "Grandma, I didn't know," he said softly, his voice trembling slightly. For the first time, the joke that had rolled off his tongue felt small, almost foolish. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the heater and the creak of the wooden floorboards beneath my chair. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees, my hands wrapped around my tea mug. "I know, Ryan, and that's why I'm telling you this story. Because it's not about being old or quiet or slow. It's about understanding and noticing what matters before it's too late." His eyes darted around the room, looking at the walls, the curtains, the small bookshelf lined with worn novels. He was searching for some distraction, but there was none. The story had him now. His shoulders tensed, and he ran a hand through his hair. I didn't think," he said finally, "quiet people could do something heroic." I smiled gently. "Exactly. That's the point. Silence is not weakness. It's often the quietest people who carry the most strength, the deepest wisdom, and the courage to act when others falter." Ryan's fidgeting hand stilled. His lips parted slightly, as if he wanted to say more but couldn't find the words. "So, I've been wrong?" he whispered. "That's okay," I said, reaching over to rest my hand lightly on his shoulder. "We all make mistakes. What matters is noticing them, learning from them, and doing better next time. Life has a way of giving lessons, and sometimes it comes in the form of a story, like the one I just told you." He swallowed hard, his throat tight. I guess I didn't understand." "That's the thing," I said, my eyes locking onto his. "Understanding isn't automatic. You have to work for it. You have to pay attention, listen, and sometimes reflect on what you've said and done." He nodded slowly, looking down at the cookie that had gone cold. He poked it absent-mindedly with his finger, but he wasn't thinking about the snack anymore. He was thinking about Mrs. Callahan, about the fire, and about what I had said. "You know," I continued, voice softer now, almost confessional, "there are moments in life when you realize that the quietest person in the room has the most power. Not because they shout or demand attention, but because they think, they observe, and when the time comes, they act." Ryan looked up at me, his eyes filled with a mix of awe and guilt. I never thought about it like that. I thought quiet people didn't matter." I shook my head. "They do, and sometimes ignoring that fact comes at a cost. You miss lessons, opportunities, even moments that could change your life. You underestimate people, and sometimes they teach you something you'll never forget, like Mrs. Callahan did for me." He nodded slowly, processing the weight of my words. I could see his mind racing, connecting the dots, imagining the fire, imagining the bravery, imagining what it meant to truly respect someone for who they were, not how loud or visible they appeared. I think I get it," he said finally. "It's like being quiet doesn't mean nothing. It means maybe something really important is happening inside them." "Yes," I said, feeling a quiet swell of pride. "It's exactly that. And it's why the words you use matter. Because even joking words can carry assumptions, and assumptions can blind you to the truth." Ryan's gaze fell to the floor again, his mind turning over the lesson I had given him. He was young, yes, but I could see the growth starting small, almost imperceptible, but real. The spark of understanding had been lit. "You know, Grandma," he said after a long pause, "I don't think I want to ever dismiss someone again, just because they're quiet or old. I want to pay attention." I smiled, warmth spreading through me. "Good. That's all anyone can ask for. The desire to notice, to respect, to learn. And this story, it's just the beginning. What I'm about to tell you next, it's the part that will really stay with you. The part that shows why courage matters, why silence can be misunderstood, and why really listening is a superpower you'll want to carry forever." Ryan nodded slowly, determination creeping into his expression. "I'm ready," he said, his voice firmer this time. The room seemed alive now, the shadows on the walls stretching and bending as if leaning in to hear the next chapter. The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the room in golden light, and in that moment, I knew the boy who had joked so carelessly was no longer the same. The stage was set. The lesson was about to deepen. And Ryan was about to see why staying quiet can sometimes cost everything and why speaking or acting when it matters is a power he had yet to fully understand. Ryan, I whispered, leaning closer. What I'm about to tell you isn't a fairy tale. It's real, raw, and unforgettable. It's the moment that taught me why courage and wisdom matter more than noise and arrogance. Ryan's eyes were glued to me. The cookie on the table had been long forgotten. The mischievous glint he had worn earlier had vanished, replaced with anticipation, maybe even fear. I'm ready, Grandma, he said, voice trembling. I took a slow breath, feeling the memory settle over me like a shadow I could never quite shake. It was a late July evening, hot and sticky. The sun had begun to dip below the horizon, painting the sky orange and crimson. I was 16, carefree in ways only 16-year-olds can be. That's when I heard the first crackle of flames coming from Mrs. Callahan's house across the street. Ryan leaned forward, and I could see his small chest rise and fall with excitement and tension. Flames? He repeated, eyes wide. Yes, I said, nodding, remembering the terror, the disbelief, the chaos. I ran outside along with everyone else in the neighborhood. But what I saw stopped me cold. Smoke poured from every window. Flames licked the roof. And inside, trapped on the second floor, were Mrs. Callahan and her family. Ryan gasped audibly, his hand flying to his mouth. They were trapped? Yes, I whispered. And all the neighbors froze. Everyone was screaming, calling for help, but no one moved. No one dared go inside. Except her. He blinked, incredulous. Except her? Yes, I said, the memory burning in my mind like the fire itself. Mrs. Callahan didn't wait for someone else to act. She didn't hesitate. She ran straight through the smoke, up the stairs, calling out for her family. The flames were fierce, the heat unbearable, and yet, she went in. She saved them, every single one. Ryan's jaw dropped. She actually ran into the fire? I nodded slowly. Yes, and no one expected it. Not me, not the neighbors, not even her family. That day, I realized something that would stay with me forever. The quietest people often carry the greatest courage. Their strength isn't loud or flashy, it's in their actions, in the choices they make when it matters most. Ryan sat back, stunned, trying to picture it. The small figure of Mrs. Callahan, flames reflecting off her face, her arms reaching for her family. He was frozen in awe. I can't even imagine, he whispered. I smiled faintly, though the memory was painful. I know, it was terrifying. Smoke burned my eyes, heat singed my hair, and I thought she might not make it. And yet, she did. And after that, the neighborhood looked at her differently. But the lesson wasn't in their reaction, it was in her courage, in her quiet strength, and in the truth that actions speak louder than words. Ryan's small hand covered his mouth. Grandma, she saved lives. Yes, I said, my voice steady. And she did it quietly, without expecting recognition. That's the thing, Ryan. Sometimes the people who seem quiet, who sit back and watch, they are the ones who carry the weight of the world. They are the ones who show you what courage truly is. He swallowed hard, his eyes wide with newfound understanding. I never thought quiet people could do that. I shook my head. Most people don't. That's why your words earlier, about old people staying quiet, it hit me, because I've seen what silence can hold. I've lived it, and I wanted you to understand that your assumptions about quiet or older people could blind you to strength, wisdom, and courage you might never see otherwise. Ryan sat silent for a long moment, and I could see him replaying everything in his mind. The fire, the courage, the lesson, it was all forming a pattern he was beginning to grasp. Grandma, he said finally, voice small, I think I understand. I didn't realize. I just never thought about it like that. I reached over and touched his shoulder gently. Good. But understanding isn't enough. You have to remember it. You have to let it guide how you see people, how you treat them, and how you value the voices that might otherwise be ignored. He nodded slowly. I want to remember. That's the first step, I said softly. And the second step is carrying that lesson with you, letting it shape who you are. Because someday, Ryan, you will be the quiet person in the room. You will face moments where courage matters more than noise, more than attention, more than anything else. And I want you to remember Mrs. Callahan. Remember that quiet strength can move mountains or save lives. He shivered slightly, both from awe and the vividness of the story. I think I get it, he said. I really do. I smiled. Good. And there's more. Because what you've seen in my story is only part of the lesson. Courage, wisdom, and respect aren't just about fire or danger. Sometimes they're about everyday choices, what you say, what you notice, and how you treat people. And those choices, they define you more than any loud act ever could. Ryan's eyes flicked around the room, absorbing everything. I think I want to be like that, he whispered. You already can be, I said gently. It starts by noticing, listening, and understanding that people who seem quiet or old might hold the most valuable lessons of all. And when the time comes, you'll act with courage because you've seen it modeled, because you've felt it in stories like this, and because you understand the cost of staying silent. He nodded again, more firmly this time. I'll try, Grandma, I promise. I reached for my knitting again, though my hands trembled slightly from emotion. The room was quiet, but the weight of the story lingered, filling every corner. The fire, Mrs. Callahan. The lesson it had settled into Ryan's young mind, leaving an imprint he wouldn't forget. And in that moment, I knew he had changed. The boy who had joked about old people staying quiet was gone. In his place sat someone beginning to understand the depth of courage, the power of quiet, and the value of listening. The sun dipped lower outside, spilling golden light across the floor. Shadows stretched long, touching the edges of the room like witnesses to a revelation. And Ryan sat, still wide-eyed, processing the truth that courage often comes softly, quietly, and unexpectedly, but always with immeasurable impact. Ryan's eyes were still wide from the story of the fire, his small hands resting on the table, tense and trembling slightly. Grandma, I never thought quiet people could be so strong, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I leaned back in my chair, letting him feel the weight of the lesson settle over him. Strength isn't always loud, Ryan. Some of the most powerful people in the world don't need to shout. They just notice. They just act when it counts. He looked down at his hands. I always thought, if someone's quiet, it means they don't care or they're not important. But now, I think I've been wrong. You're not alone, I said gently. Most people think that. But life has a way of teaching lessons you can't ignore, sometimes with fire, sometimes with stories, and sometimes just with the people around you who show up quietly, every day, making a difference. Ryan's brow furrowed, the wheels in his head turning faster than ever. So, you're saying, it's not just about being loud or brave in front of everyone. It's about noticing when it matters, and then acting. Exactly, I said, a small smile tugging at my lips. You see, courage isn't about drama. It's about choices. And the quieter someone seems, the more carefully they often choose. They notice what others miss. They think, they observe, and when the time comes, they act in a way that changes everything. Ryan's gaze lifted slowly, meeting mine. I think I get it, he said softly. Like, being quiet doesn't mean nothing. It means, maybe, something really big is happening inside them. And I just never saw it before. That's right, I said, feeling warmth bloom in my chest. And now, you're starting to see it. You're starting to understand why it matters, why words carry weight, and why paying attention to the quiet ones can change your life and maybe the lives of others too. He leaned back, staring at the floor, thinking. So, when I said old people should stay quiet, I didn't just insult someone. I ignored them. I didn't see what they could do, or what I could learn from them. That's okay, Ryan, I said gently, reaching over to squeeze his shoulder. Recognizing a mistake is the first step. Learning from it, that's where growth begins. And stories like the one about Mrs. Callahan help us see what we might miss if we aren't paying attention. He nodded slowly, absorbing every word. The sunlight spilling into the room seemed softer now, wrapping around him like a warm embrace. The lesson was sinking in. I could see the spark of empathy growing in his eyes, the beginnings of understanding, the first stirrings of respect for those he had once overlooked. "You know, Grandma," he said after a long pause, I want to notice more. I want to see what people are really capable of, even if they don't shout or show off." "That's a good start," I said, smiling. "And it's not just about noticing bravery in others. It's about noticing courage in yourself. Because someday, Ryan, you will be the quiet person in the room. You'll face moments where courage matters more than attention, where strength isn't measured in volume but in action." His eyes widened. I never thought about it like that. I hope I can be brave like Mrs. Callahan someday." "You already can," I said softly. "Every day, you make choices that show who you are. And now, with this lesson, you have the tools to act wisely, to notice what matters, and to respect the quiet strength in others." Ryan looked thoughtful, his fingers tracing circles on the table. "I think I want to apologize," he said slowly, "to everyone I've ever ignored or made fun of because they were quiet. I want to do better." I felt my chest tighten with pride. "That's very brave of you, Ryan. Recognizing your mistakes and wanting to make amends. That's real courage. It's not loud, it's quiet, and it changes everything." He nodded, eyes shining with determination. "I want to be someone who listens, someone who notices, someone who acts when it counts, not just when it's easy or fun." "That's exactly the lesson I wanted you to learn," I said, my voice warm but firm. "And you're already starting to understand it. Remember this, Ryan. It's not the noise you make that matters. It's the choices you make when no one is looking. That's what defines you." He sat back, taking a deep breath, absorbing the weight of the words. "Grandma, thank you for telling me the story, for showing me why quiet people matter, why we all matter, even if we don't shout or act like we're important." I reached out, ruffling his hair gently. "You're welcome, Ryan. And remember, this is only the beginning. The lessons don't stop here. Life will give you moments to notice, to act, to listen, and to understand. And when those moments come, you'll be ready." He smiled faintly, a mixture of awe and determination on his face. "I'll try, Grandma. I really will." I nodded, feeling the warmth of pride and love wash over me. "I know you will, Ryan. And that is everything." The room was quiet now, but not empty. The lesson had settled, wrapping around him like a blanket. The fire, the courage, the quiet strength, all of it had planted a seed in his heart. And I knew it would grow, shaping the person he would become. And in that moment, Ryan wasn't just my grandson. He was a boy beginning to understand life, courage, and the true meaning of respect. The next morning, Ryan didn't rush into the kitchen like usual. He stood quietly at the doorway, hands tucked into his hoodie pockets, his eyes scanning the room as if seeing it for the first time. I looked up from my tea, noticing the seriousness on his face. "Good morning, Ryan," I said, a smile tugging at my lips. He nodded, quiet for once. "Morning, Grandma," he said softly. He didn't jump into a joke or tease, and I noticed immediately that something had shifted. Something inside him had changed. I set my mug down and studied him. "You're thinking," I said, not accusingly, just matter of fact. "And that's a good start. Thinking is the first step toward understanding." He shuffled his feet, looking down at the floor. I've been thinking about the story you told me," he said finally. "About Mrs. Callahan, about courage, about quiet people." I nodded, encouraging him without interrupting. "Go on." "Well," he began, hesitating, "I realized I've been ignoring people. Not just old people, not just quiet people, but anyone who doesn't shout or act like they're important. And I want to change that. I want to notice people more. I want to listen more." My heart warmed. "That's exactly what I hoped you'd take from it, Ryan. The lesson isn't just about courage in a fire or bravery in danger. It's about noticing, understanding, and respecting the quiet strength in everyone around you." He nodded earnestly, his small brows furrowed in concentration. "I even tried something yesterday," he said, eyes brightening. "I helped Mrs. Miller carry her groceries. She's usually quiet and keeps to herself, but I realized she might just need someone to notice her." I smiled, proud and touched. See? You're already applying the lesson. Actions, not just words, show understanding. That's how courage and empathy grow. Ryan paused, thinking. And I also tried listening more to my friends at school. Not just waiting for my turn to talk, but really listening. I think I learned more than I ever did before. Exactly, I said softly. That's the power of quiet observation. Listening, paying attention. It teaches you more than speaking ever could. And when you act, it's informed by wisdom, not noise. He looked down at his hands, tracing the edges of his hoodie. Grandma, I think I understand why you got upset when I said old people should stay quiet. I didn't realize what I was missing, and I don't want to miss things anymore. I reached over, placing my hand on his shoulder. That's the point, Ryan. It's never too late to notice, to understand, and to act differently. And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. His eyes met mine, a flicker of determination shining through. I want to be that kind of person, the kind who notices, listens, and helps when it matters. Not just loud and funny, but thoughtful and brave in my own way. I nodded, feeling a swell of pride. That's exactly it. And sometimes the quietest people, the ones who observe, who reflect, who choose their actions carefully, are the bravest of all. Ryan leaned back in his chair, smiling faintly, a new confidence building in him. I think I get it now. I want to be like that. And you already are, I said softly. Every small choice you make to notice, to listen, and to act shows that courage isn't measured in noise, or attention, or applause. It's measured in the impact you have on others, quietly, consistently, and thoughtfully. He nodded, determination and curiosity blending in his eyes. I want to keep learning, he said. Not just about bravery, but about people, about what they can do, even if they're quiet, or older, or different from me. That's the essence of growing up, I said. Understanding that every person has value, every voice has importance, and every act of courage, no matter how quiet, can change the world, or at least someone's world, forever. He sat in silence for a moment, reflecting, then smiled shyly. Grandma, I think I'm starting to see why silence, or quietness, can be powerful, and why it matters to notice it. Yes, I said softly. And now, the real test comes. Life will put you in situations where you have to act, where your courage is measured not by what you say, but by what you do. And when that moment comes, you'll know what it means to carry the lesson of the quiet and the brave. He leaned forward, gripping the table edge, a spark of excitement mixed with seriousness lighting up his face. I want that, Grandma. I want to be ready. You already are, I whispered, smiling. And every day, you'll grow stronger, wiser, and more courageous, quietly, thoughtfully, and powerfully. The morning light filtered through the curtains, highlighting the determination in his face, the way he sat taller, more aware, more present. I could see the transformation beginning. The boy who had joked about old people staying quiet was now becoming someone who noticed, listened, and understood. And in that quiet kitchen, with the sun warming the wooden floor and the hum of life surrounding us, I knew the lessons had taken root. Ryan's journey of empathy, courage, and respect had begun. This was only the beginning. The seed had been planted, and now it would grow through actions, choices, and the small, powerful moments that would define who he was becoming. Later that afternoon, Ryan burst into the living room, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes bright with mischief, but this time, it was different. I could see the thoughtfulness behind the spark. He wasn't just seeking a laugh. He was testing himself, testing what he'd learned. Grandma, he said, plopping down next to me on the couch, I saw Mrs. Peterson struggling with her recycling bins today. And I helped her. I raised an eyebrow, a smile tugging at my lips. Is that so? He grinned sheepishly. Yeah, and she tried to hand me a cookie in thanks. But I remembered what you said about quiet strength, so I politely refused. I chuckled. Good choice. Acts of courage don't need recognition, and sometimes saying no gracefully is part of that. He puffed out his chest a little, pleased with himself. It felt weird, but also good, like I was doing the right thing. And I didn't even tell anyone at school. I nodded, proud of the small, subtle growth. Exactly. It's not about applause or attention. It's about noticing and acting thoughtfully. Then, he suddenly looked guilty, but he hesitated. Then I saw Tommy trying to shove Sam off the swing at recess, and I didn't know what to do. My curiosity piqued. Go on. Well, he said, wringing his hands. I wanted to shout and call him out, but I remembered Mrs. Callahan and the fire and the story you told me. So, I ran over quietly, held Sam's hand, and whispered to Tommy to stop. And he listened. I leaned back, impressed. That's incredible, Ryan. You didn't need to yell. You acted. You noticed. You intervened thoughtfully, without making a scene. That's courage. Just like Mrs. Callahan. His grin returned, shy but proud. And it felt really good. Like I did something right, without making it a big deal. I think I'm starting to understand quiet strength. I reached over and ruffled his hair. You're doing more than starting to understand it. You're living it. He giggled and flopped onto the couch beside me. Grandma, I think I might even enjoy being quiet sometimes. I laughed softly. Well, that's a first. And he continued, mischievous again but with a thoughtful glint. I even told my friends at school that sometimes listening is braver than speaking. And they looked at me like I was weird. But I didn't care. I just wanted to try it. I smiled warmly. That's the spirit. Courage isn't about fitting in. It's about doing the right thing, even if others don't understand. He leaned his head against my shoulder, sighing contentedly. Grandma, I think I get why you told me that story. And I think it's already changing me. I nodded, feeling a quiet swell of pride. Stories have a way of doing that. They plant seeds, and sometimes it takes a while. But eventually, you see the growth. He lifted his head suddenly, grinning. Oh, and I helped Mrs. Miller with her cat too. She was stuck on the roof, and I climbed up and got him down. I laughed outright, half in surprise and half in pride. Ryan, that's incredible. You didn't just notice, you acted. That's what makes the difference. He beamed, clearly thrilled. See, Grandma, I'm practicing. I'm being brave quietly. I chuckled and shook my head, ruffling his hair again. Quiet bravery suits you, Ryan, and it's much more powerful than being loud for attention. He sighed, curling up next to me. Grandma, I think I'm starting to see why quiet people, old people, everyone matters so much. And I want to be like that. Thoughtful, strong, brave, even if nobody notices. Exactly, I said softly. And remember, it's not about recognition. It's about making a difference. No matter how small, in ways that matter. He grinned mischievously again, and I couldn't help laughing. Just don't go starting any fires like Mrs. Callahan, okay? He giggled and nodded. Deal. The sun filtered through the living room window, bathing the two of us in warm light. Shadows danced on the walls, echoing the laughter and quiet moments we shared. In that simple afternoon, with small victories, quiet triumphs, and heartfelt lessons, Ryan was learning what words alone could never teach. And in that laughter, that warmth, and those small, thoughtful actions, I saw the transformation fully begin. The boy who had once joked about old people staying quiet was now growing into someone who understood, who cared, and who was quietly, bravely, becoming a better version of himself. It was late afternoon when the phone rang. Ryan had been sitting quietly at the kitchen table, sketching in his notebook, lost in thought. When I answered, I realized immediately why the voice on the other end sounded urgent. Mrs. Callahan's house. She's fallen, the neighbor said, panic threading through every word. She's stuck in the garden shed, and she can't get out. Ryan froze, pencil hovering midair. His eyes widened. Grandma, that's her. Yes, Ryan, I said, setting the phone down, my voice calm but firm. And this is your moment. Do you remember everything we've talked about? Mrs. Callahan, the fire, quiet strength, courage, noticing what matters. He nodded, suddenly alert. I do. I get it. I understand now. I smiled gently. Then it's time to act. We ran outside together. The sun was low, painting the world in golden streaks. Mrs. Callahan's shed door was jammed, the handle stuck. Her frail voice called out, tinged with panic but steady, a reminder of the quiet courage she had always carried. "Ryan," I whispered, "what will you do?" He looked at me for just a moment, then turned to face the shed. "I'll help her," he said, determination in every line of his face. With a strength that surprised even him, Ryan pushed at the door, found the latch, and opened it just enough for Mrs. Callahan to squeeze through. Her eyes met his, wide with gratitude, and she whispered, "Thank you, young man. You didn't have to, but you did." Ryan's heart pounded. He realized then what Grandma had meant. It wasn't about being loud, or being noticed, or being the hero everyone expected. It was about seeing the need, choosing to act, and doing it quietly, with courage and care. He helped her up, supporting her as she adjusted her shawl. Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't tears of fear, they were tears of relief and gratitude. Ryan felt a warmth spreading through him that he hadn't felt before. Pride? Yes, but also understanding, empathy, and a profound respect for quiet strength. "Grandma," he said later, as we walked back to the house, I think I finally get it. It's not about showing off or being loud. It's about noticing and acting when it matters most. That's real courage. That's real strength." I nodded, feeling my own chest tighten with pride. "Exactly. You see now, Ryan? Quiet people often carry wisdom and courage that the world overlooks. And when it's your turn, you act not for attention, not for applause, but because it's the right thing to do." He looked thoughtful, processing the weight of the lesson. "And I think I've been wrong so many times. About old people, quiet people, everyone. I just didn't notice before. That's okay," I said softly. "Noticing comes with practice, patience, and reflection. You're learning now. That's what matters." He smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and pride. "I think I want to keep noticing. I want to keep acting thoughtfully. And I want to help others see the power of quiet courage, too." I reached over and ruffled his hair gently. "You already are, Ryan. Every small choice, every moment of attention, every quiet act of kindness, those are your lessons in action. And someday, they will inspire others, just as Mrs. Callahan inspired me." Ryan's eyes shone with determination. "Grandma, I think I finally understand why you told me that story. It wasn't just about a fire or bravery. It was about everything. Life, choices, respect, courage, empathy, quiet strength, all of it." "Exactly," I said, feeling a deep warmth settle over me. "That's what I wanted you to learn. That's what matters most." He paused, then looked at me with a serious expression. "Grandma, I want to be someone people notice, not for being loud or flashy, but because I notice, I care, and I act when it matters." I nodded, tears of pride forming in my eyes. "That's the kind of person I knew you could be, Ryan. And now, you're becoming him." The evening sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow across the yard. Shadows stretched long, intertwining with the warmth of the day, just as the lessons Ryan had learned intertwined with the growth beginning inside him. "I think I understand why silence can be powerful now," he said softly. "It's not absence, it's preparation, it's observation. And when the moment comes, the quietest person can be the bravest." "Yes," I whispered. "And now you know, Ryan, you're not just hearing the lesson, you're living it. And that is priceless." He smiled faintly, the look on his face a mixture of pride, and realization, the look Grandma had promised would be priceless. And in that moment, I knew the lesson had taken hold. The boy who once joked about old people staying quiet was now growing into someone who truly understood respect, courage, and the immense power of quiet strength. And as the golden light of the evening bathed the two of us, I realized that this was more than a lesson for Ryan. It was a moment that would ripple through his life, shaping the man he would become, a man who notices, who acts, who understands that sometimes the quietest voices are the loudest in impact. That evening, after the sun had set and the sky was painted in shades of deep purple and gold, Ryan and I sat on the porch, the gentle hum of crickets surrounding us. The world felt still, as if pausing to give space for reflection. Ryan sat close, knees pulled up to his chest, and glanced at me with a thoughtful expression. "Grandma, I've been thinking a lot about today, about the fire, about Mrs. Callahan, and about everything you've told me." I nodded, letting the cool evening air brush across my face. And I asked softly, encouraging him without pushing. He exhaled slowly, as if weighing each word carefully. I think I finally understand the difference between just saying words and actually noticing, listening, and acting. It's huge. And I want to do that, not just today, but always. I smiled, warmth filling my chest. That's the most important lesson, Ryan. Courage, respect, and kindness aren't things you only practice in dramatic moments. They're in the small choices, the quiet actions, and the attention you give to the people around you. He nodded, staring at the darkening sky, thinking. I realized I've missed so much before, not just with old people or quiet people, but everyone. I didn't see what mattered, or how my words and actions affected them. That's okay, I said, resting a hand gently on his shoulder. The important thing is that you notice now, and you choose differently. That's what makes growth real. A soft breeze stirred the leaves, carrying the faint scent of flowers from the garden. Ryan's eyes glimmered in the fading light. Grandma, I think I understand why you told me that story. It wasn't just about a fire or bravery. It was about life, about noticing, about courage, about respect, and about quiet strength. And I feel like I'm starting to see it in everyone, not just Mrs. Callahan. I nodded, feeling a swell of pride and relief. Exactly. That's the lesson I wanted you to carry with you. Life will always give you moments to notice, moments to act, and moments to understand. And when you do, you'll be making a difference quietly, powerfully, and meaningfully. Ryan leaned against me, the porch swing creaking gently beneath us. Grandma, I think I understand why silence can be so powerful. It's not absence. It's not weakness. It's observation, preparation, and thought. And when the moment comes, the quietest person can act in ways that matter the most. Yes, I said softly. And now you're seeing it, Ryan. You're living it. And that is priceless. He looked up at me, a mixture of pride, and understanding shining in his eyes. Grandma, I feel like I've been given a secret superpower. The power to notice, to listen, and to act wisely. And I don't want to lose it. I laughed softly, brushing back his hair. It's not a secret, Ryan. It's a choice. Every day, you decide to notice, to care, and to act. That's your superpower. And it will grow stronger the more you practice it. He smiled, a genuine, thoughtful smile, the kind that comes from deep understanding. I promise, Grandma, I'll keep noticing, I'll keep listening, and I'll act when it matters quietly, but powerfully. I nodded, feeling tears of pride and joy welling in my eyes. And I'll be here, watching, guiding, and supporting you every step of the way. Because what you've learned today, what you carry forward, it matters more than you'll ever know. We sat in silence for a few moments, letting the evening wrap around us, holding the weight of everything that had happened. The fire, the courage, the quiet strength, the lessons, they were all there, mingling in the air with the scent of flowers and the hum of the night. Ryan finally broke the silence, his voice soft but certain. Grandma, I think I'm ready. Ready to see people differently, ready to notice, ready to act, and ready to carry this lesson with me. Not just today, not just tomorrow, but always. I smiled, the warmth in my heart spreading like sunlight. Then you've already begun, Ryan. And the journey, the quiet, powerful journey, is just starting. He rested his head against my shoulder again, the two of us swinging gently on the porch, the world outside fading into quiet. And in that quiet, we shared something more than words or lessons. We shared understanding, growth, and a bond that would shape both of our lives forever. The stars began to appear, one by one, in the velvet night sky. Ryan's hand brushed mine, a small but powerful gesture of connection. And in that moment, I knew the boy who had once joked about old people staying quiet had grown. He had begun to see, to understand, and to carry forward a wisdom that would guide him for the rest of his life. And as the night embraced us, I whispered softly, more to myself than to him, the quietest people often have the loudest impact. And now, Ryan, you're part of that story. The next morning, the sun spilled golden light across the room, brushing Ryan's hair with warmth. He sat at the kitchen table, quietly nibbling his toast, but something in his posture, in his thoughtful gaze, told me he wasn't the same boy who had joked about old people staying quiet. "Grandma," he said softly, looking up at me, "I've been thinking about everything. The fire, Mrs. Callahan, helping people today, everything you told me, and I think I finally understand why you shared it." I nodded, my heart swelling. "And what's that, Ryan?" He paused, searching for the words. "It's not about age. It's not about being loud. It's about noticing, understanding, and acting. It's about quiet courage and respecting people for who they are, not what they say or how loud they are." "Yes," I whispered, tears brimming in my eyes. "That's exactly it. That's the lesson I wanted you to carry with you. Life doesn't always shout its lessons. Sometimes the most important ones come quietly, waiting for you to notice." Ryan's eyes glimmered with awe. "And I think I want to be like that. I want to notice, to act, to listen, and to carry this lesson with me. Not just today, not just now, but always." I reached over, ruffling his hair gently. "You already are, Ryan. Every choice you make, every act of kindness, every moment of attention, it shows your courage, your empathy, and your respect. And that is priceless." He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that comes from understanding something deep and meaningful for the first time. "Grandma, I didn't think quiet people could teach me so much. I didn't think old people could be so important. But now I see, and I feel different. I feel stronger, braver, and better." I nodded, warmth spreading through me. "That's the power of noticing, Ryan, and you've begun to understand it fully. The world will throw challenges at you, moments when courage matters more than words, when action matters more than attention. And now, you're ready." He paused, looking at me seriously. "Grandma, I want to apologize to everyone I've ever ignored, made fun of, or dismissed. I want to do better." I smiled softly, placing my hand over his. "Recognizing mistakes is courage, Ryan. Wanting to do better is strength. And the fact that you feel it, that's the beginning of growth." A soft breeze fluttered through the open window, carrying the scent of the garden flowers. Ryan looked out, thoughtful, then turned back to me with a small grin. "I think I'm going to notice more, listen more, act more, and maybe, even when I stay quiet, people will notice the things that really matter." "That's exactly it," I said. "It's not about being loud. It's about being present, being aware, being brave quietly. And one day, someone else will learn from you, just as you've learned from Mrs. Callahan and from me." Ryan's expression softened, his voice barely above a whisper. "Grandma, thank you for the story, for the lessons, for everything. I think I understand now." And the look on my face, he laughed softly, a mixture of pride and humility. "I think it's priceless." I chuckled, my heart full. "It is, Ryan. It truly is. That look, it shows growth, understanding, empathy, and the kind of courage that can't be taught, only felt." He leaned against me, the two of us sitting in silence for a moment, letting the weight of the lesson settle. The sunlight danced across the walls, painting everything in golden hues, and for the first time, I felt the full circle of the story, from the fire to quiet courage, from misunderstanding to understanding, from jokes to growth. Ryan finally whispered, "Grandma, I'll carry this with me, always, and I'll try to notice the quiet courage in others, even when nobody else does." I smiled, tears welling up. "And that is how you change the world, Ryan. Not with loud words or attention-seeking acts, but with observation, understanding, and thoughtful action. That's true bravery. That's true respect. And that is priceless." He hugged me tightly, and in that embrace, I felt everything come together. The fire, the stories, the lessons, the laughter, the mistakes, the growth, all of it had led to this moment. A moment of understanding, a moment of connection, a moment where the boy who had once mocked quiet people now carried within him a wisdom far beyond his years. "Grandma," he whispered, pulling back slightly, "I'll never forget this. I'll never forget you, Mrs. Callahan, or the lessons you taught me. And I'll try to make every quiet act matter, just like you said." "You already have, Ryan," I said, smiling through my tears. And you always will. Remember this feeling, this understanding. It will guide you through everything. The room was bathed in warm sunlight, the world outside quiet and still, as if holding its breath for this moment of reflection. Ryan's eyes sparkled, full of awe, understanding, and pride. The boy who had once joked about old people staying quiet had transformed into someone who truly understood the power of quiet strength, courage, and respect. And as I watched him sit there, thoughtful and determined, I knew that this was the true reward. Not applause, not recognition, not words but understanding, growth, and the priceless look of someone who finally sees the world in a new, wiser light. Ryan smiled at me one last time, a look of quiet triumph and heartfelt realization. Grandma, thank you. The look on my face, it's priceless, and I'll carry it forever. And in that moment, I realized the truth I had known all along. The quietest people often have the loudest impact, and noticing that is the greatest lesson of all.